Good evening. Today is Tuesday, October 28th. I would like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Deputy Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Orth?
Here.
Trustee Whitaker?
Here.
Trustee Fowler?
Here.
Trustee Gallen?
Here.
Trustee Yedis?
Here.
Trustee Elfman?
Here.
President Mendrick?
Here. All right, as always, we start out our meetings with public comment. If anyone has anything they would like to say, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Long time no see. I'm Limpy McGivern from Northfield, Illinois, but you can call me Don Graff. Just got knee surgery 3 weeks ago, and true story, right before they put me under, my wife asked the doctor if they could also throw in a frontal lobotomy too. So I'm not sure if they did that. And also, this is the first day I've been able to drive since the surgery. If anybody has a Toyota Camry Silver car to the east, sorry about that. I just want to say, there's no problems coming on my end at all. I do have a problem with a board, but a board from way back 15 years ago. I don't want to talk about it tonight because I'm still trying to go in the background and stuff, but back when the Willow Road stuff was going on. But I just want to say, I saw the Public Works people fixing the sinkhole right by my house. They did it all in 3 hours. They did it quickly. Now, there's that old joke about seeing people on the road workers, one guy digging, the other 3 or 4 standing around, maybe smoking a cigarette. Not these guys. They did a great job. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Don. We appreciate those kind of observations and comments. And Patrick, please pass that along to Public Works. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, the next order of business is to approve the minutes from September 17th and September 30th of 2025. Do I have a motion?
I would like to talk about that before we approve that, please.
I think we need to put the motion on the floor and then
Okay.
we can have discussion. So may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion around the minutes?
Yeah, this has been an ongoing issue, and I think that when you look at the minutes of the Committee of the Whole and when you look at the minutes of the board meetings, whenever a resident speaks, it says the resident's name. There's some instance here where it says a trustee inquired about the status regarding the state potentially revising Tier 2 pensioners. We've talked about this before, and I think in regard to transparency and open government, and I know, Tracy, this isn't on you, this is on Patrick. When I talked to him earlier, that this used to be that all the information was always in there. The trustee's name was always given. And I really feel that when you go back 35, 7, 10 years later, that when you want to look it up, and I know you can view them, but most people aren't going to go view the minutes. They're going to look at it as the minutes are, not by a video. So I really feel strongly that the names of those people, if they're going to bring something up, why is there a problem having their name put there? Trustee Orth said, or Trustee Whitaker said, or Trustee Fowler said. I don't know what the big deal is. And I know it was like that forever until Patrick became the village manager and he changed this. And I would love to see us continue the way we had it. I don't know why. For transparency and open government, the trustee who said that should have their name applied to it. So I don't know, Patrick wants to speak to this before, but I feel very strongly. I don't know why we're not doing that.
Well, I guess I would like to ask the other trustees, this continues to come up, and I believe the last time we discussed it, there was no not consensus, there was no decision that we should move forward doing something other than what we are currently doing. Now, if people think we need to have a discussion about how to change what we're doing, let's do it, and, we may have to kick something else off the Committee of the Whole meeting regarding, village projects, but if we want to go ahead and talk about how we're going to do our minutes, let's do it, because I would really like to not have to have this conversation every month.
I'd like to ask Greg, if possible, what good governance is and isn't, and get your opinion on what you see, because how many boards do you serve at this point?
Too many.
Okay.
No, I'm happy to, Tracy. So minutes are kind of intensely local. Some communities are very specific, some communities are very general, and there's room for everything in between. A couple touch points, a lot of communities that televise their meetings or have the video or audio posted online, you see those communities tend not to have as detailed of minutes as communities where you have to physically attend the meeting to hear and understand what's going on and participate. So there's not legally one right or wrong answer. The minutes are intended to be kind of a summary of the action that was taken. How you define summary of the action really is a matter of preference.
Okay, does anybody want to talk about this further, or does anybody have any specific thoughts or concerns about the way the minutes are currently being written?
Okay, I know that this is not the time for me to, this has come up again and again. I have asked,
Carol, I'm sorry,
sorry, this is going on forever, and you guys aren't doing anything. We have asked for the names of trustees what trustees said to be named. Charlie's asked for it, I've asked it, I think Kathy Estabrook's asked for it, and I guess you guys have just decided to leave it where not naming who says what. And I'm sorry to be intrusive right now, but this has gone on for a long time, and I wish you guys would honor us. Yes, it's videotape. A lot of people don't have the time to videotape, to go through that. To be able to read who said what is really important for village residents. I apologize for the interruption.
Okay. Trustees, does anyone have an opinion that we should move forward doing minutes in any other way than we're doing them right now?
My only comment, Tracy, is that it's a couple names, and I don't see how difficult. I mean, Holly does the minutes saying instead of a trustee inquired, if Trustee Gallen inquired about the percentage of municipalities, why, and we did that this way forever until Patrick became the village manager, and I'm just wondering why, asking Patrick why he changed it or what good reason there is to change it is really where this is at.
I just need something to say. I personally think that when I go through the board minutes, if there's something that's really of interest to me, I'm going to go back and I'll watch the video. I will say that in my time on this board, when we started, we didn't have live streaming. We didn't have the ability to record meetings. And therefore, I think having the names of who said what was truly important. But I think that the way it's being done now, I think it fits the bill, and I also think, Carol, I hear you loud and clear.
No, you don't.
I do, and I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just making a statement, is that I think that, it's easy that, what do we want? Our staff to spend hours transcribing notes and who said what?
It's only a couple
I feel like
incidences.
I'm not arguing. I'm sharing my thought, and I'm sharing my opinion. And I think that the way it's being done, which you asked for, is adequate.
When I read the minutes, I feel like they're a good summary of the meeting that we had, period. So I don't see any additional need for myself.
Okay. Anybody else?
I mean, I see the consistency of what we're doing. It seems like when we have motions and seconds, that's when we put names. But otherwise, it's just discussion of what happened, so. But I'm with Tom on, you can go back and watch if it's something of importance, so.
Anyone else? Okay. Deputy Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Orth?
Nope.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes?
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Gallen?
Yes.
Trustee Yedis?
Yes.
Trustee Elfman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next item of business, number 4, is the continued discussion concerning the village-owned condominiums at 308 Hap Road. You'll remember we talked about this a few months ago and asked staff to go back and do a little more research for us, which they have now done. And Patrick, is this you going to take this? All right, thank you.
It is, thank you. As you mentioned, we've been asked to look at this, and in the previous packet, we'd included a report done by staff many years ago about the condominiums, and we have updated that information. Additionally, I've gone through and talked to a real estate agent. One of the questions from the board was, if we were to put a unit on the market, approximately what would that be? So in your board report, I've given that information to you as an update. There are not a lot of comparables out there for other units, but we've presented this information to see if you'd like to move forward. It's a difficult situation that there's really no clean answer to. So you'll see in a kind of an unusual fashion for me, I put the manager's thoughts in here to kind of help give you a little bit of guidance of, if this were mine, here's what I would do to move it forward. And I think when the village first did this, purchased these units, it was to provide affordable housing for seniors. And over the decades since the village has owned them, they've gotten away from making sure those were exclusive to seniors and holding rates solid. So that's put us in the situation today where we've got some people that have been long-term tenants, some people newer tenants, but I think over the years we haven't equally administered how we select people to live in those units. So based on the fact that you probably read your packet, I'm just teeing this up for your thoughts and feelings toward my recommendations. And you'll see there's a list in that packet. The first one is we look at selling one unit now, using those funds to help upgrade the other units. You may recall we mentioned last time that part of what brought this forward for conversation is the units are reaching the point where we need to invest in significant dollars. We haven't replaced appliances, washer, dryer, range, refrigerator in many of the units. The HVAC units, we had one fail this summer, and it was about a little over $7,000 to replace that unit. I'd like to be able to do that with multiple at a time and be able to negotiate a better deal if you're considering keeping those units, and just really bring them up to speed so they're a little bit more reflective, in my opinion, of Northfield.
Okay. Anyone like to start, comment on this, or?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. And I think the idea of selling one unit makes sense and upgrading the remaining 5, but I do think it's a valuable asset for us to have in the village. The rents, I understand it can be a management nightmare, Patrick, so it can be a challenge. That being said, if we can get these more to market rate, you're going to get a significant return higher than what we would be getting if the cash was sitting in the bank, right? And so I look at what we're getting on our money in the bank, which is between 4 and 5%, call it. We're going to get a yield north of 6 for something that we didn't pay for. And if we do upgrade it, I think it's nice to have affordable housing in the village for residents. And hopefully, in due course, Steve will have assistance. This is, if we go to yearly leases versus month to month, you're just addressing this on a yearly basis. And I understand you want to upgrade things all at once so that you kind of put the problems behind you. But I do think it is a nice asset that we have. It's nice for village residents. Takes a little bit of work, but if you do the work up front, I think it'll run pretty smoothly. That's just my view.
Anyone else? Any questions? Any comments from the public on this issue? Please come to the podium and just state your name and address for the record.
My name's Diane Carroll. My mother lives in one of the units. So I'm not a resident, but I did grow up here. So
Okay.
I wanted to know how you would decide who you're going to evict if you decide to sell one of the units.
Yeah. I can tell you, unless the board advises otherwise, my approach would be, we've got a wide range. Some have been there over 20 years. Other has been 5 years. I would probably do last in, first out. So I would contact that 5-year resident and indicate.
That's my mom.
And indicate that's probably the approach we're taking. And there's nothing wrong with me reaching out. We've also got one at 7 years, if I remember correctly, and see who's in a better position or more willing to look at other options.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think Todd brings up some really good points about long-term in the investments and things like that. And I think it is a valuable asset for the village to have. And, you know, looking at improving, I think that improving would increase our, we'd have to increase rent to potentially market value. But I think that this needs a lot more looking at to be most beneficial both for us and the residents of that building. And I think that, you know, I'm probably speaking totally out of line, but we're not gonna evict your mom. I'm sorry, we're not gonna. I know, I mean, this is terrible. So I think we have a little more exploring to do to see what we can do to make this right and benefit everybody, so.
I think it's a challenge for the village to manage and be a landlord. You know, I recognize that. It is a valuable asset, but I also think the human story, you know, behind it. There are 6 people who live there currently. I think we've got to be very conscious of how to roll this out and give plenty of time for them to find alternative housing. You know, I think it's important to communicate with them if we make any changes.
And you could wait until there was a vacancy to roll this out too, right? That we have a plan in order, and once somebody vacates, that's when we execute the plan.
Yeah, trustee Fowler stole my thunder on that one. That's what I was gonna say. I think I think we should definitely be looking at when the vacancies occur. Do we start looking at selling these units off? But I think there's a lot to be said for generating that income while we can, right? Even with the updates and all the things we need to do there.
Yeah, I would say that going that route, then we'll have to be mindful in the budgeting process of putting some funds aside for HVAC repairs, which need to be done in 5 of them, right? And appliances. So it's not going to be an inexpensive prospect for us, and we don't want to overlook it in the budgeting cycle if that's the way we are going to choose to move along. So, okay. You got what you need?
I think so. I'm seeing a bunch of nodding heads, so
Yes.
that's the approach we'll go. Greg and I will spend a little bit of time talking about when one does come vacant, what's our process for being able to make a sale?
Right.
Because it's been a while since I've sold village-owned property, so we'll go through the appraisal process, I believe, and work through that. But that's helpful direction.
And then, did we answer your question about rent increase in all of this?
We have not talked about it yet. So that's number 3 on the list is the recommendation to increase the rent, $125 a month, but that was based on the fact that we would have new appliances, improvements in those units. And then what term lease would you like me to extend? To Trustee Fowler's comments, do you want me to stagger the leases so they're not all due at one time, or do you want me to keep us on like a January 1 or a March 1st cycle, so all of them come up at the same time?
I think what would
If you have a
be
preference.
What's easiest on staff.
Yeah.
Is my thought. You know, I mean, if it's a year to year, January, does that make it easier for bookkeeping and everything else?
It's easier for us to know that when they're coming up as a reminder, oh yeah, it's January, we need to make sure we've got everything in order, rather than
I
every
would
few
run it with
months.
the budget year. Most leases are not January to January. And the leasing cycle is usually in the spring, which aligns very well with our fiscal year. So if you align it with that, I think it makes it easier across the board from that
Okay.
standpoint. And there's no reason in most multifamily rentals, and we haven't been doing this historically, I understand the rent bump, but we should be moving it at CPI every single year, the rents, you know, on a year-to-year. Now, month-to-month is a totally different situation, but if we sign one-year leases, you should anticipate rent increases the following year to adjust for CPI.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Great. Item number 5, discussion concerning implementation items from the Vision Plan 2040.
Thank you.
Patrick.
Excellent, thank you. So you may recall when we had the vision plan discussion, we, as staff, the last thing we talked about was this action item matrix or listing in the back of the plan that was put together by the committee 5 years ago as a, if you want to implement the plan, here's the things we recommend you do. A number of those required adjustments to the code and some modifications. I didn't want to start us down that path of bringing forward code recommendations and spending, frankly, attorney time on that if it's something you really didn't want us focused on. So the purpose of being tonight, Steve's going to run us through this chart and just give you an idea of what our recommendation is. If the board's comfortable with us moving down this path and timeline, we're just going to keep going and bring things to you when the time's right. If there's something that you see and you're not comfortable with our approach on it or our recommendation, just let us know. Steve, do you want the master controller, or do you want to just give me a big old nod and I'll turn it?
Controller's fine.
Don't trust me, huh?
So again, we're going to just do a high-level overview of some of the key recommendations that we find at the end of the 2020.
Steve, can I just
comprehensive
ask you to
plan.
pull your mic a little closer?
You bet.
Thank you.
So. Got it? Yeah. Okay. So again, we're just going to do a high-level overview of these, this implementation, basically implementation actions that are contained in the, at the end of our comprehensive plan. So we're just going to dive right in. The first objective we talked about in the comp plan was promoting the rehabilitation, replacement of deteriorating and obsolete commercial structures, industrial structures, and office structures. We have made a great deal headway in that already with the implementation of the new B3 district zoning. Frankly, the Central Avenue corridor really was the poster child of this objective, and we feel that the board's implementation and rezoning of that area into this B3 district zoning is going to be a great start in terms of making the desired changes that we need with obsolete types of properties. We have others in other parts of the village. I think this was the biggest concentration of those, and so we've actually started this off with a good start with actually the new condominium building that was also recently approved by the board, and hopefully we'll start construction in 2026. The comp plan also talks about expanding the list of permitted uses in the key zoning districts. That was accomplished actually over the last couple of years. If you recall, we expanded the types of restaurants to kind of differentiate between them, allowing for, as permitted uses, full-service restaurants, as opposed to requiring special use process for that type of business, highly desirable businesses like that. That continued with the B3 district zoning as well. We extended all of that encouraging of the desirable uses to that zoning for that district as well. Another example of that was the changing outdoor dining from a special use in our Village Center district in the B3 district into a permitted use. Again, wanting to see that and feel it's key to the vibrancy of our downtown area, and so we didn't want to put up any regulatory hurdles on that. Next objective was to require high-quality design, architecture, and site amenities as new developments are considered. I can tell you, and any developer can tell you, this is one of maybe the second thing that I emphasize when we talk to them in our first initial discussions about what they might want to do. That said, we also want to formalize that in the way of design guidelines that are uniform, They'll go forward, people can see them on our website. If they're even thinking about doing something in Northfield, they can go to that. That is actually already currently being developed by staff, a draft of those guidelines, and we'll be talking with the Architectural Commission, I think as the board had directed us previously, we'll walk through that with them and have them tailor that and craft that as they think that will work for this community, and then present that eventually to the village board. And we're going to start drafting that in this last quarter of this year, and actually probably starting at their November meeting. So that is underway. Support the development of small, locally owned businesses to preserve the village's sense of place and enhance the village center as a regional destination. There are some specific actions that were suggested. One, creating incubator spaces or allowing for incubator spaces and vacant office spaces. We have not really delved into this yet. We're really kind of waiting to see how the changes in that B3 district kind of pan out. Before we start to kind of tweak that, the use or reuse or alternative use of the office spaces themselves. Really focus on redevelopment of those obsolete office spaces right now. Another point under that broader objective was to develop a small business starter guide to help small businesses open quickly and safely. We currently have that a little bit more on the back burner. We really want to be focusing on the redevelopment things right now. And if our retail business vacancies, our storefronts, we see more vacancies there, we'll readjust that priority. But right now, we don't have very many vacancies. The ones that we do we are getting calls, and we actually understand that there are lease negotiations going on for some of those vacancies. Continue to proactively engage with the Chamber of Commerce. This is ongoing. We are very actively involved with that board of directors, and as well as with our small businesses. Modernizing parking lot development standards to reduce visual impact of surface parking. Specifically talking about enhancing our requirements for perimeter landscaping.
Could you advance your slide for us?
Yes, I'm sorry. And again, we'll be looking at this, doing more research on what other communities are doing, and we anticipate looking at that with likely the Architectural Commission, who reviews landscape plans in the first quarter of '26. Also the plan talks about establishing an incentive program that pushes developers to implement green stormwater drainage practices. Again, we'll be researching that likely in second quarter of 2026. And promoting cross-access and shared parking. We will work on code changes regarding shared parking and cross-access as part of a larger code updates. We have a ongoing kind of laundry list of things that we'd like to come back to the zoning code to tweak. This has been placed on that list, but we anticipate that being again in the first part of next year. If anybody has any questions as we proceed, just please stop me. Revised parking minimums to reflect industry standards. We've actually did that when we did our revamp of the zoning code back in 2023. That really, in essence, was relaxing standards for certain retail uses that over time we have both observed were really too stringent, too onerous, as well as the industry best practice standards also would reflect the relaxation of some of those requirements. Encouraging sustainable best practices such as low-impact design strategy as part of new development site design. Again, these will be linked with the review of potential incentives for stormwater drainage practices. We'll be looking at that as well in the second quarter of 2026. Yeah, a little typo there, sorry. Ensuring that new residential developments do not adversely impact capacity of school facilities or funding. The action on this really was to engage the school districts more earlier on and initially in any discussion of larger, more significant multifamily developments where we might anticipate more students residing in. So staff will implement an internal process on that, and this is relatively easy. And we will do that with any residential developments exceeding 20 units. We really, even if there are less, we make them aware informally. But we'll kind of formalize that internal process so doesn't fall through the cracks. It's a similar, this next line is basically this is a similar and action item. One talks about planned unit developments. This one talks about special uses. We'll be doing the same thing internally as far as making sure that the schools are aware of significant projects. And then integrating open space opportunities in commercial and office development, including the preservation and enhancement of natural features, as well as the provision of landscaped areas, squares, plazas, and courtyards. Again, we'll be researching how to implement this into our standards for development that we use as we judge and have as you folks judge in the Plan and Zoning Commission, Architectural Commission, reviews and judges proposals. And again, we will be doing that research and don't really want to get ahead of our neighboring communities. We really want to be on a kind of a competitive disadvantage, so that's going to be part of that research to see what others are doing in that regard. And again, second quarter of 2026 is when we'll be tackling that. And these are the key action matrix items that we have in the back of the code. I should say we didn't even list a number of ones that we've actually already done. Gotten accomplished. So,
Okay. Thank you, Steve, for that. I know that was no small project to go through those action items. Does anyone have any comments, any thoughts, anything you want to add? Questions?
Steve, thank you for all your time doing that. Just had a couple quick follow-ups here. One thing is just the importance to coordinate with the school districts about if we are going to be increasing development so that they can budget and plan accordingly. I know both New Trier and Sunset Ridge at their school boards mentioned decreased enrollment, and as we prepare to build more or build less, I think it would impact them. So to make sure to include that. And then I wondered about the third action item, if we've discussed setting aside some % of the tax investment to promote economic development, if that's something that we would look into.
absolutely.
Trustee Elfman, did you
Well,
have
I
something?
was going to ask about number 3 as well, something with, just looking at what incentives might exist in other villages as part of this process. I noticed a few times through here, we talk about incentives for stormwater things and incentives for green and other things. So making sure that we maybe look at what other villages are doing to bring in small businesses as well, I think would be an important part of this.
Absolutely. Incentive programs.
I do like the idea of a small business starter guide. I think
Sure.
that could be useful as well.
Any comments from anyone in the public? No? Okay. So let's move on to item number 6, discussion of a proposed public parking in the 1700 block of Orchard Lane. I'll turn this over to Patrick, but this has been something that has long been discussed with prior boards and the opportunity to take advantage of a piece of property that just sits there along the Eden's Expressway. So Patrick, this is you, I'm presuming?
Sure. And for those members that were part of the budget process last year, this was one of those topics that I honestly can't tell how long, but probably at least 5 years. The village has been trying to work with IDOT to get a consensus that this parcel shown on the screen here outlined in yellow could be leased from Cook County. It's a little complex, but the land was initially Illinois Department of Transportation, state land. When the Edens was built, the parcels that were unused were turned over or dedicated to Cook County. However, IDOT kept a kind of first right of refusal on them, if you will, that they get to dictate what can happen on that land because this parcel in particular drains from left to right on the screen into the ramp of the Edens. So it's a stormwater contributor for them. So for a number of years, the village has been trying to get this done where IDOT would say, it's okay, you can make it happen. When we were doing budgeting, we had set aside money in the budget to actually get to the design phase of this parking lot. There were two pieces. One is get through the IDOT process in engineering. The second was start to design it. The board asked us to pull those funds out for the design process and wanted us to stop once we got IDOT permission. As I reported previously, IDOT has given us a no further objections statement. So we're now in the spot where it's the board's decision, would you like us to move forward and see if we can actually construct this parking lot? And there's a couple pieces to that. One is we would need to negotiate a lease agreement with Cook County for their parcel of land. I don't expect that to be much of a hurdle. However, going through the design services, I see an opportunity here, and hopefully it clicks to you as you look at this. As you look at the bottom of this parcel, you see the back of Stormy's lot, the back of Canvasback. That parking is right next to this proposed village parking lot. So in my opinion, there's a good opportunity there for us to reach out to those landowners and say, would you like to do something more comprehensive? Because right now, Steve, if you go to the next slide for me. Right now, you see this is how the engineers currently propose the parking lot to sit. It gives us 24 stalls, but the drive lane on this actually cuts partially into existing parking spaces in the back of Stormy's that really aren't on their property. I'm not going to highlight it for Cook County, but Stormy's has been using some of Cook County's property for this to happen. So alone, we would net 16 because to build 24, we're impacting some of their spaces. So I would propose that we look at the owner's willingness to really, I'll use the term lightly of master plan, but master plan the use of all these lots to see if we can maximize the parking in that area subject to the owner's permission. I didn't want to reach out to them until I knew where the board stood as far as is this something that you want to explore or not, because I get the sense that if I did, they'd be excited with the prospect, and I didn't want to then say, oh, sorry, we decided not to move forward. So for me, if there's a consensus among the group to move forward toward reaching out to the owners, starting a lease negotiation with Cook County, and then once I find out if we can master plan this, start for getting a proposal for design services. It's about $38,000 is the first proposal I got to design just what you see highlighted in yellow. That's a rough estimate and does not include the master planning, but I would want that to go out and look at a couple other design firms to make sure we're in the ballpark of where we should be. And Steve, if you'd hit one more image for me, please. So this gives you a little bit of a better sense. This is laid out slightly differently, but it lets you see a little bit more closely how those parking lots or parking stalls would be laid out because of the steepness of the incline here coming off the Edens. And our design has stormwater basically going to the west and coming out underground to take that water away from the Edens. And that's really what convinced IDOT that this would be good for them because we'd be taking stormwater off their property.
So your lease agreement with the county would probably be something similar to like $1, a low amount. I mean, have you had any pushback or any ideas of what their numbers are with what they would lease it to the village for?
I'd probably go wild and propose 10. I think that it used to be $1. I think the common thing now is they go with $10. But yes, it would be a de minimis amount would be my goal. In the conversations with Cook County, they've been involved in this IDOT conversation because all of our work actually goes through Cook County to be sent to IDOT because it's Cook asking for the permission. They seem comfortable and appreciate this concept for us taking care of their land for them.
So lease agreements of this time and term would be roughly, are we talking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? I mean, have they done other things like this with other
I'm going to try
communities?
for at least the length of expected life of the lot. So 20, 30 years. I'll try to get. I don't know if they have requirements on how long they'll lease their property. I know IDOT is, I think, no more than 5 years. It's a pretty limited term for them, but I'll do the best I can.
And again, we don't have any issues with the state. We don't have to worry about them coming in and they're out of the picture.
Best I know, once they give the no further objections, it's between us and the county.
Okay. And then their overall cost of this is 38,000 or how much more?
The design cost proposed for just what you see here was 38,000. The construction cost is in the ballpark of 200,000, but we have 2 grants from the state that could help fund this project if you're willing. And I tend to flip them in order. We have 300,000 for stormwater improvements and 200,000 for capital projects. So I think we've got enough money in potential grant funds to be able to fund this lot at little out-of-pocket expense.
Thank you.
I have a question. I think we should reach out to the businesses first and see who wants.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say that I did speak with Stormies regarding this issue because I wanted to be sure that they understood that there was a potential for this conversation at the board meeting this evening. They were actually very excited about the opportunity to explore this with us and see what we could do, as you use the word loosely, master plan. So I know that Stormies is very interested and excited about this opportunity. Tom, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to let you know that.
So, I met with Chad, the majority owner of Stormies, because he had heard about that you had met with Pete, who.
Yeah, Pete Murray is
Parks
who I
owner.
spoke to.
And he, we were looking and, so that's why I think the initial piece here is to officially meet with the businesses who I hate to say the real owners, but whoever's majority owner of the businesses, and say, here's what we're proposing, here's what we'd like to do, what do you think? And I talked to Patrick today, and I was looking at this just thinking, I mean, it would be great to have the ability to do parking like this, but the way it's set up right now, it's like a circular pattern, and this is putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but there's no way 2 cars can fit in between the alley of the Metamorphosis building and the Canvasback building. And I think that, it's great, it'll help the businesses, but I also struggle with the fact that we've got a couple of municipal lots in our town that also need to be addressed and improved. And how do we put money into a lot here when we have, the municipal lot north of Willow and the one next to Mariano's that need a lot of work too? So I guess if we get buy-in from the businesses over here and they want to move forward, I think I would definitely entertain doing it. I want to know, I get it, it's a great opportunity, but I just want to make sure that the businesses are addressed as well.
Yeah, and obviously, this is just a first review of the what-ifs in a situation like this. And we already know Pam at Metamorphosis has always expressed concern about the alley and what the ingress and egress would be to an additional parking lot here. And I think that's why we really need to hire the experts to look at this holistically and give us an understanding of what is possible if the businesses wish to participate, what is possible if they don't, just sort of a laundry list of the options we have to consider, and then take a look at costs from there, so.
Yeah, that's a couple comments. First of all, on the front end, I will continue my crusade against bad-looking vegetation, anything to get like cleaned up around our entrance to the village, I'm 100% behind. But when you talk the master plan side, so when you're talking the businesses, you'd go from 1721 all the way over to 1757, like that whole stretch. We're not talking just Canvasback and Stormy's, right? It'd be, I guess Pam's owns buildings on both sides. But what I'm trying to figure out is when we talk the bigger plan, would it be that kind of entire section north of Orchard into the curve? Is that what we're kind of thinking, or?
Steve, could you back up a slide for me?
Because the other thing is we talk about the alleyway by Metamorphosis, but people would also be accessing between Stormy's and 1721, there would be the other access point.
Right.
So it's almost like would it become one-ways around there, I guess.
Yeah,
is
and I think that's
question.
part of Trustee Whitaker's point of, if there is this master planning, and you've got the ability to tie in this section, you may be able to go in one way, out the other. Another piece that I haven't mentioned yet is that you'll see this line through here. This is the former Eaton's Bank lot, now Byline Bank owns this property. The village has an easement across this property for ingress and egress. So if we're master planning, there may be an opportunity to use this access point to go right out to Walnut. It's a little complicated because right now it's grass, and even with an access agreement, I don't know that we can actually construct something on someone else's land. We've got work to do. But I think we've got a couple good options to explore as we go through the planning process.
And that's where I think this idea of at least talking to everybody and figuring out, does this work, does this not work for you, makes the most sense to me, because otherwise it's going to be, kind of to Trustee Whitaker's point, people, where are they going to drive, what does it look like, some of that as well, so.
Well, and that's what I was saying, like, do we get the buy-in from the businesses before we invest any money into the project, is really my.
Well, where you are in the process right now, Patrick, you've gotten one bid, and you want to get a couple more, so that's going to take you some period of time. So that should give you plenty of time to have a conversation with the other business owners.
Yes, I asked for a proposal from our village engineer this evening, just so we'd have a ballpark. I anticipated you may want to know what I'm eventually asking for. But my process would be contact the decision makers of the businesses, see if they're interested in this concept of moving forward, get that information, refine proposals for design services based on their response, and then bring that package back to you after I've gotten some initial discussions with Cook County also, as one kind of big, complete package, and say, you know, here's 3 proposals, here's what we recommend to move this forward. Are you interested? So that may take several months for me to get to that point, but if the board's comfortable, I'd like to start speaking with the decision makers.
Would the east side of Stormy's where the traffic goes in and out still be two-way? That wouldn't become one-way, would it?
I don't know. It's a little early to figure out. I think we would probably look at what's the most efficient use of the land of the people participating in the process.
What's the timeline on the grants?
Interestingly open-ended. I have to file paperwork every once in a while to let them know we're still working through a process, but there's been no date given to me that we must expend the funds by a certain date, although there's always the risk of the state not having money, but yeah.
Patrick, I think it's smart to move forward with this, and on top of that, if you're able to get that easement, we then can have village employees park there and not have to cross Willow Road in a very disadvantageous area of the village. So I think from a safety standpoint, this would actually enhance safety of our employees, not having to go over there.
Since that area behind where the gas station used to be, which is the vacant grassy lot now, and we have easement rights there, wouldn't we be able to put, let's say, what would be called an alley through there? Or would that be, I mean, right? Isn't that how it's set up technically?
That's more of a legal question that Greg probably won't want to jump into in an open meeting, but it's the question I brought up is, since it's just grass now, I don't know that we can actually construct an improvement on somebody else's land just because we have an easement. It's something we would need to research further.
Okay, any comments from the public? Sure, Pam, go ahead.
Pam Papadato, 1757 Orchard Lane. Couple comments and questions on this that I've looked at now for a few years. Love the idea of more parking. Thank you for remembering my safety issue. Stormwater. Right now, in that alley, we do get a significant amount of water that doesn't drain properly. Will this correct that problem, do you think? Or is it too early to know? So that would be one of my concerns. You don't have to answer it right now. My other thing that is an ongoing issue are the very big delivery trucks that come through this alley. I don't know if there's an alternative for them, and obviously it's very important that those deliveries are made. Case in point, today I went to pull out and there was that big US delivery truck. They're so big coming down into a very narrow alley. So how will that play into this? When it comes to what Todd said about employees, I know I make sure that my employees do park across the street. What I feel, and this is just my opinion, is going to happen with this, those employees that are between those two buildings, they are already parking back there, and it's just going to push them back. Are you going to put hourly limits on this so it's to really get customers to park there? What is the objective for employees or customers or both? So these are just my initial thoughts and concerns. Thank you for listening.
Yes.
Kim Worth, Orchard Lane. So since we're talking about parking, I just wondered if you had any updates on the situation over on the east side of Mariano's and that parking, because we're talking about getting additional parking spaces here, but the ones that we have over there, I know 2 buses got dropped off with about 34 guys in them now that are taking up all those parking places, or a good majority of them. You asked them to maybe move south in their parking.
We have, and last I heard they were doing better with that. I wasn't out there today, but
They're not really doing much better. They still take the majority of spots. And today I actually saw a couple of buses coming from Winnetka to the Coventry Church in Winnetka. Some of them are parking there now too. But I don't really care about their parking. There's going to be a couple big projects coming up in Winnetka. Are we going to get more of their construction workers parking in our lot?
much like Pam's questions, I'm not sure right now.
Yeah. Is there anyone that you were in particular talking with in Winnetka? I mean, did you have a conversation with the construction workers or the village? How did they even know about our little parking lot?
I haven't asked them how they found us, but we have talked to a number of people trying to get this resolved.
Yeah. Because I know you said initially it's a municipal lot, anyone can park there, but it seems like we should go to battle for our own parking spots. Because Pam's people, I know, just park there as a courtesy to their customers. And, you know, I think we should show the same courtesy to our employees that park there. So, for what it's worth. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh.
Don, if you would, just wait a second. This gentleman's raised his hand a number of times. I know it was hard for you to get up there. I apologize.
It's good exercise for you, Don.
Good evening. I'm Arthur Glass. I'm here on behalf of the Canvas Back. Parking is a conundrum in the downtown area. The challenge is that Stormies owns their property, Freeman owns the next 3 or 4 stores, and Pam owns her piece. And every time I look at this, and I've seen this from the beginning of your 2040 program, how does it interface with the businesses who are the backs of their stores where their garbage cans are to create not just safe passage, but a user-friendly type passage so that people feel like they're not out having to cross into nowhere land to come into visit a business. So I challenge you in the design part of this, how does that interact with the businesses who are, this is the backs of their stores. Their garbage cans are back there. So you need more parking, that's a given. Question is how do you interface that with these businesses? And I wish you lots of luck, because it's definitely needed.
Thank you.
You for your time and your input.
I think these have been all good comments from everyone, and we've, of course, taken notes on them, and when we engage an engineering firm, we'll include those comments as things that businesses are already concerned about and how we can master plan for something that would be more successful aesthetically as well as just vehicular traffic. So no promises, but we'll talk about it.
You have to make it interface with people so they feel like they're walking through a park. Otherwise, you're just walking through the backs of stores that doesn't really, people who want to shop aren't going to go back there and park and walk all the way to the front, I don't think. Maybe I'm
Right.
wrong.
Okay. Anyone else? Don, it's your turn.
Sure, make the gimpy guy come up there twice. That's okay. How about thinking big and thinking bold? Is there any way possible to do something about that jewelry store, popping them into another location, maybe in one of the shops downtown? Now you've got a parking lot that's almost like a semicircle. Now you're talking which property, and you know which property I'm talking about, right? But that's basically just an old house. There was a dentist office. Now it's kind of a jewelry store. I'm thinking you could put 10 to 15, maybe 18 parking spaces there. I'm not sure if the owner or the lease of that, you're laughing at me. I'm not
Because
sure.
you're sitting
right next to the owner
You're
of the
sitting
property.
right next to the owner.
You better use your cane to protect yourself.
So Don, if your wife were here, she'd be going like this.
She's the one who gave me the lobotomy. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any other comments from the public here tonight on this issue?
I think we should ask Don to please get back to us with his report.
Yes, yes. Let us know how your discussions go with your neighbor. All right. Item number 7 is a discussion to proceed to address resident requests related to dedication of private roadways and creation of special service areas. Patrick, take it away.
Sure. I've lumped a couple of things here into this title, and it's bifurcated in 2 main points. In the time I've been here, I've gotten a few calls from residents who live on private lanes that often are reached a point where some big improvement needs to happen. It's stormwater, it's replacement of asphalt, et cetera. And they say, why doesn't the village just take my private lane? And it usually ends up in a fairly detailed conversation. Well, I pay the same tax as everybody else, but you're on a private lane, and so I explain the whole process. But from time to time, there's a group of residents that want the village to accept dedication or ownership of their lane. I found no policy, no kind of stance of the board on this issue, and it's uncomfortable for me to say, no, we're not going to do it, or yes, let's start looking at it without knowing the thought of the board on this issue. So the first item I'd like to tee up is, how would you like me to address those conversations? If you want us to look at it, it's a pretty intense look for us because we need to figure out what criteria would have to be achieved if the board were to accept dedication. And let me give you just a little bit of background. Often private lanes are created when a development is created. And the person developing the section, the big lot, more than likely did not want to bring the road up to the village standards at that time, or it was an area that was annexed in the village, and the village says, no, we don't want responsibility for your road. So in the private development piece, often the setbacks of where the edge of road is to where the house is may not meet village standards, or they don't want to put curbs in, or they don't want to put a large enough storm drain in, the road bed thick enough. All those questions come up, and often the developer's like, you know what, it's just, I can actually get more homes on this parcel if I just make it a private lane. Not thinking that 10, 20, 30 years later, the residents are going, I need to replace these things, and why should we have to pay for it? So that's often the trigger that comes to us. I dealt with it a fair amount in Kenilworth. They only had one private lane, but the issue came up every 3 or 4 years. So some guidance from the board would be helpful if you either want us to say, you know what, thank you, but right now we're not accepting any dedications, we're not considering it, or giving us direction as staff, go look at some potential criteria and report back to us in, 4 or 5 months on what the options are.
I have a question. So, pretty recently, Rolling Ridge, I guess, became a special service area. And, but now the village, I don't understand truly how the special service area works. But I do hear you with the anomalies in properties and, yards going into other people's yards and just kind of draining everywhere. But I think, what's the benefit to the village to, I hate to say incorporate, because they're not incorporating, but bring it to this?
So the special service area was the next kind of piece that I'll definitely jump into.
Okay.
But for the roadway dedication, it's actually an increase in the village's overall liability. It's an expensive proposition for you long-term without any increase revenue related to that increased liability.
So there really is no benefit?
Not that I can think of. For your residents, yes.
Except for the residents, because the village is now responsible
Yes.
for plowing, salting, upkeep. Okay.
Correct.
Patrick, I think you can address it by saying, we've looked at it, and if you want to bring your road up to whatever the code is, that, we can look at a dedication, but that's going to mean a lot of these lanes are one way, and you got to make it two-way, and you got to put curb and gutter, and you got to do all the, once they hear that, I think they'll be like, yeah, that's not what we want to do. So to your point, you don't want to be dismissive. As a board, I'd be willing to take it if they spent all the money up front to get curb and gutter, to get the sewer lines, to have two-way egress on all those lanes. Okay, if they made that investment and then they dedicate it to us after they do that, be open to it. I don't think any of the lane owners would dare do that because it would be so expensive.
If that's the way the group...
That's just my view. I live on a lane.
Yeah. If that's the way the group would like us to respond, we need to work and develop that kind of minimum criteria for a lane, because I don't think it exists. Because we're built out, so to be able to say it needs to be designed like this, and it can't have a dead end, it needs to be a hammerhead or a roundabout of a minimum diameter. Steve's giving me a look like maybe there is something out there, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not looking to take on properties, but I'm just saying, for us to say just no, that's probably not right either, but maybe there is you guys do this.
Well, that's the thing.
We can discuss.
Yeah.
We can discuss it.
I agree with Todd. I mean, that's the thing, is a lot of these people move on these streets, and it's very charming when they move on these great little streets, and they think that's private, and it's nice, and it's cute. Then all of a sudden, when they realize, how bad the road's getting, and, well, who's going to maintain this? Well, you do. And like I said, when we've taken over some of the roads from the county or the state, then we've made them, or the deals, but they bring it up to current standards, get it all done, and then we take it over. Like I know North Hap and some other areas have been the same way. But there's a lot of lanes in town, and like I said, it would be a huge expense for those individual homeowners. We definitely shouldn't be taking it on until it's brought up to proper standards. So again, I agree with you, Todd. It's like, don't say no completely, but when they realize what it's going to cost, and they're going to say, well, let's hold off, and maybe we can just get away with, grinding it down and repaving it for now.
And I do know the village is very good, or at least historically has been very good about letting, doing the bidding on behalf of lanes to get favorable pricing on repaving. So I know that happened on my lane prior to me moving there. So I like that sort of working together with the village so that they can get more favorable pricing, unlike what we're dealing with over with Middle Fork Circle at the moment, right? using the heft of the village to help them in some manner, but they got to bring it up to snuff.
And that was going to be my comment, is it's kind of a conundrum, right? Because the residents still are paying the same taxes and not getting all the same services. But I think this needs to be written in a way that includes, the special circumstances or things like the paving situation. I think that's a great example of, well, if we're going to have somebody come into the village anyway, let the private lanes know if they want to jump in and get better preferred pricing. That's the way to do it. But I'm with you on it almost needs to be written in some way so we kind of know the rules of the road. I guess use a pun with everything we're talking about. But like know those rules of the road around all these things. 'Cause I think it would help a lot of residents out of if they want to go this way. And then to Trustee Orr's point too of what does it take to bring it up to snuff? I mean, that side of it as well, because we as a village don't want to take over roads that are not anywhere close. And I know there's some private lanes going through, they're in pretty rough shape. And I know of some neighbors arguing with each other about it. That's right, yeah, all over the place. So I think that's another interesting aspect is you have to get them up to snuff and then go from there.
Steve, maybe you have some historical knowledge on this. When lanes have come to the village has done the, letting for repaving. Isn't it usually a 5-year payback that?
I have not dealt with them directly.
Oh, you haven't?
So I can jump into that when we get to the SSA discussion, because I
Okay.
do have some of that data for you.
Sorry.
So it sounds like we're headed in a direction of, we need to codify what the rules are, so that the next board and the next board after that, we're giving our residents the same response every time.
Identify the target. Steve and I will work on that, look at those standards, and we'll come back at a future meeting and give you an idea what those are, just so you know.
Okay.
So the next piece is the special service areas.
Is it related to this part of the discussion? Yes. Sure, go ahead and approach. I'm sorry, and just state your name for the record.
I'm Becky Newport, 15 Robin Hood Lane. We are a private road, and over the years, I've asked what it would take to annex the road, and it's always because we don't meet the specifications. We are doing the road ourselves this summer. We're regrading the whole thing, removing the asphalt. We're not asking the village to do anything. We just want to be part of the village. And I think because of Robin Hood Lane being next to Willow Park, our traffic is different from any other, I would argue, lane in the village. Every parent that drops their kid off at the park comes around. Everybody that's going east on Willow Road that wants to go to west comes around the other way. I mean, most of the traffic I see are not people who live there. So our road gets a lot of usage, not from just the people who live there. So we're not asking the village to do anything. We're going to fix the road ourselves. We just would like to know what are the specifications. If it would make any difference, we can make it wider or thicker or whatever. I don't know. And I don't know if you know that, Steve.
Not off the top of my head.
No? Yeah, if we are going to do it ourselves and we're going to pay for it ourselves, but we just want to know, does it make any difference if we meet whatever the specifications are?
Difference for how the road's designed for your own use, or difference for the village considering taking ownership of the road?
Yes, annexing the road.
Okay.
Because we would take care of all the money ourselves. So,
Yep.
I mean, we take care of the road now.
I think that's kind of part of the question we're having is if Steve and I work and we set the target and say, here's what the road's got to be like for the village to even consider taking it, the next step would be a group of homeowners would approach and say, look, we're redoing our road, we're hitting these standards. Village, would you consider taking ownership or dedication of this roadway? And that would take an action of the village board to actually accept the dedication.
Right. And we're going to do it anyway, but I would like to know if there are specifications before we pay to have this done.
And we don't know yet, and that's part of what we're going to do tonight, but it's going to take me 4+ months to be able to get all that together and get something aligned.
That would be great.
Becky, so I guess the point is as you're going forward in your process, make sure that you keep in touch with Patrick so that he understands, and as he advances this list, if you will, you can at least have a conversation about what you all are doing, and if it feels like it's going to get you to the end result you'd like.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now moving on to the SSA portion.
So SSA is special service area. As trustee Fowler mentioned, we had done one in 2017 for the Rolling Ridge area. That one was a case where the residents, often for a special service area, approach the village and say, you know what, we need to resurface our roadway. And it's a lot of money for all of us to pay at once. So will the village put a special service area over our property? And with that, levy taxes as part of the tax levy just for us to pay for that over a period of time. And in the last 21 years, the village has done 7 of them. They have all rolled off, no pun intended, but for the Rolling Ridge one, which is done in 2026, I believe. So next year, that one should be over with. Essentially, in this process, at least 51% of the residents say, village, please put this special service area in place. The board would pass an ordinance, and Greg, jump in if I don't have this quite right.
Right.
And there's a public hearing, there's a period for objections, and most of the time that moves forward unless 51% of the residents in the special service area say, we don't want it, and at least 51% of the voters at an election say, no, don't do this. So it's a really difficult bar to get a no once a board has passed an ordinance to say, let's create it. So here's another case where I've had a few residents approach me representing their neighbors saying, we really like to resurface our roadway, but I'm having a hard time getting residents to write me a check for X thousand dollars. Will you put this special service area in? And then that way, for the next, I'll make up 14 because that's what Rolling Ridge did, the next 14 years, while the people are enjoying this road that just got put in, they're also paying for it while they use it, versus a resident that pays for it now and happens to have to move out 2 years from now, and the new resident enjoys that. So there's a couple reasons for the residents that works really well. If this is something the village is still willing for us to do, I need to do a little research about how it impacts, if it does, our credit rating. Because the way this works is the village actually goes out and issues debt. And that debt, the promised payback, is from the special service area residents' property taxes. But picture something dramatic happens to a portion of the village. We're in Jamaica and the homes are gone. And suddenly the property tax is not coming in to pay for that SSA. Who's responsible for that? If the village doesn't backstop it with the phrase, it's good faith and credit, the rate for that special service area goes up because it's a higher risk for the people purchasing the bonds. So I've got some homework to do if you want us to continue exploring this, but I know of at least 2 different resident groups that have asked if we're open to it because we're looking at doing a resurfacing project next year village-wise, and they are also. This ties in with, you may recall a few months ago, we did a village-wide road survey to get data that we're sending out to the private lane owners. I counted, we're 47, 48 roughly private lanes in town. It's a high percentage of our overall roads. So I want to give them that data so they know here's their condition and here's expected life if we have that data.
That's all great. I love that we're doing this. But at what point does the village say, guess what? This road's unsafe for the fire, for police and fire to come in there? Because I know there's some lanes that are in incredibly bad shape right now. What rights do we have at this point to say, you guys have to do something? I'm not suggesting it, I'm just wondering what the...
There's a couple triggers there, and Steve, if I get this wrong, let me know, but we recently had the refuse hauler came to us and said, look, there's some overgrown trees that we can't get in and provide service. The village has in its code the ability to say, hey, residents, you need to trim these trees back because we can't service this. Similar situation with police and fire response. If we have a significant concern, road condition-wise, it almost need to be a mud pit where we're worried we couldn't get through it. I don't think the residents would let it get that bad. I'm a little more concerned with trees and other obstructions, things being built too close to the roadway causing a problem.
I wonder, given the stats you just gave us of 47 private roads, I mean, there is a potential that 10, 20 roads could come to us over the next, I don't know, 5 or 10 years and say, can you do an SSA for us? That does put the village in a bad position in terms of, as you said, the catastrophe happening. Now, you know, the likelihood of that is not great, but we have to think about that as we talk about whether these are the right things to do or not.
So that's why if there's a consensus of the group of, yes, we'd like to continue offering this service, we'll work on learning a little bit more about what our financial exposure is, and then we may say, look, we'll be in debt no more than X. So sorry, I know you'd like an SSA, but we've got to wait until one rolls off. I can find a way to kind of put some criteria around that so we're protected, yet we're still able to offer this service for residents.
I have a procedural question. Isn't the first stop on this process coming to the board and having the board pass an ordinance to do it? Is that the first stop on this process? Because if it is, then that just seems like that's the first check on it, if the board has an appetite to do it.
It is. In my mind, the first stop is, so if a resident called me, or the residents that have already called me, I'd say, you know, the board's talked about this. I'd like to see a letter signed from at least 51% of your area people saying that you'd like this. With that, we would draft an ordinance and bring it back to the board for consideration. I generally wouldn't have the ordinance crafted until I had an idea that enough homeowners wanted it, so it didn't put you in a bad position that you've passed the ordinance and now you're hearing from these people screaming, why would you do this? Because Don Graff is the only one that wanted this and everybody else didn't. Sorry, Don, it's twice today. I've got to pick on you a little bit.
My cane is loaded.
What you've just described, though, seems like it's like, I don't know, sort of like good policy, but not binding on the board to do it or not do it.
It's not. You know, part of this is tied to me being fairly new to this town, and also recognizing that these are kind of policy-related questions that we've never engaged in. And my style, my approach, is to generally be pretty aligned with what you guys want me doing. And what you saw with the action plan matrix, what you're hearing with this, and the roads, is me feeling out the group's comfort level before I start headed down a road, no pun intended, that you don't want me on, and I put you in a position that we've got a resident group wanting an SSA, and the board's going, why'd you bring this to us? We didn't want to do this. So it's a learning for me of how this group wants to approach things.
One concern that I have is just setting the precedent that once one private road finds out this happened, it's going to spread like wildfire. And I think the challenge is, at least in my understanding, none of these homeowners purchased a home and then it was made a private lane. They all purchased this and should have done their due diligence when they purchased the property and recognized they live on a private lane, and that has different rules and different codes and maintenance and costs. You know, I think it was mentioned before that the people who live on the private lanes pay the same taxes, but so do the people in the condos. You know, they don't get the snow plow, they don't get the removal, they don't get the usage. So I think it's just worth noting, and I think it's a concern that people moving into a situation would later say, can you help us pay for something that we willingly moved into? So.
Go ahead.
I'll say, I saw a bunch of nodding heads. Is everybody comfortable with us kind of starting to put some guardrails around the SSA
I just want to
concept?
ask if there's any public comment on this section of the conversation. No? Okay. Now you say you think you've got what you need from us.
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Anything else from anybody sitting in the audience before we close the committee of the whole meeting? All right. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you back here at